Welcome to another video on Smart Technology, a company that proudly represents Brazil. The aim of this video is to show the ladder configuration on the LC800 controller. Let's open Studio 302 to start our configuration. Let's first configure the license. The license is free. Just click on the license button in the top menu and then add the license for the LC800. In the user LC800 case, we enable the license so that you can use all the configuration and features of the LC800. Then go to Areas, right-click and create a new project. You have the option of taking a predefined LC800 project. Enter the name of the project, and we'll have the project already. Project. With our ladder block. Block is available for our initial configurations. Let's change the name of our flexible ladder block. In Attributes, we can change this tag to a new block tag. This way we can adapt it to our programming needs. Then don't forget to save our project and save our modifications. Here we have the hardware used in our example. We have the following sequence: the power supply, the LC800 CPU, here's a blank card, a digital input card, a digital output card, and the analog cards. Note that each rack has 4 cards. So here we have 2 racks with 8 cards configured here so that we can make our software configuration. Now let's right-click on our flexible ladder block and edit our store. Here we open Logic View. In Logic View, we'll first configure our hardware. Let's configure the conventional hardware, the conventional cards. There is also the possibility of working in redundancy. We have already configured the power supply, the CPU, and then we'll configure the digital input card. Then in the same rack, we have a blank card with no function. In the second rack, we'll have the digital output card, and then the analog input and output cards, which we're not going to configure at the moment because of our example. You can see here in the software the check of our configured hardware. It is possible to insert new cards when necessary. In the LC800 rack, we have a configuration of 4 cards. We can also have 15 racks in the LC800 system, making it a medium-sized system. Let's go to the Elements tab, and in this Elements tab, we have the Open Contact, Close Contact, and Output resources. There are several resources available for our ladder configuration. Next, click on the ladder option. Make an open contact. We can then insert a horizontal line and then an output contact for driving a pump, for example, and an input contact, which would be a sensor. By double-clicking, we can tag that sensor, choosing the address for that sensor. On the right-hand side, there is a space where we can enter the description of our input. As an example, let's type input 1. We can put our description of our discrete sensor there. Next, we'll enter our output address of the DF25 output card. We put output 1 there, and then we have insert a closed contact. Let's make a seal logic, an open contact, an input, an on and off. Let's insert the horizontal line. Let's insert an output. A contact in parallel. We take the vertical line and place it on top of the contact we want to make vertical. We want to make parallel. Let's insert a blank contact. With that, we have our logic ready. Don't forget to save it, guys. Next, let's tag it as an example. Let's put in input 1 as we've already used 0. We'll put input 2 on the closed contact, which is our disconnect. And in the output, we'll insert another output. We've used output 0. Now we're going to use output 1. We're going to parallel, repeat the output because it's a seal contact. And on the seal contact, we have to repeat output 1 or output 2. In this case, the second output for our logic to work. So there we have the configuration and the description. We're going to insert our contacts. On the right-hand side again, we'll put in all the necessary description. It's important that we document our project. Eventually, when we do maintenance, it's very important that we get the documentation right. And also, after some time, you need to do maintenance. You have this documentation that will make it easier. Identification of incoming and outgoing contacts. So we've put the inputs and outputs as an example. This gives us all the initial configuration and description of our LED logic. Speaking of documentation, let's insert some text. By clicking on the text option here, we can insert texts related to our LED. As an example here, we insert a text label to place here in our LED strategy. And we'll also insert an on and an off text. Also, as an example, we're going to insert an output here. We'll put the name good. Watch in the video how easy it is to insert these texts. And we can have better documentation of our project. Once the documentation is done, we have the system, and we can also have printed documentation as well. In Tools, there's also the possibility in Tools Preference to make a previous documentation. Click on IOU. In IOU, we have all the input and output addresses. And here we can describe of each entry and exit card and each point on these cards. And there we also make a prior documentation of our configuration. Now let's go into Syscom to be able to go online. Then we can download our configuration to our CPU. Click on the online option. Wait for it to communicate with the CPU. Then we save. If it enables the save option, enter the live list option. Look at live list. The options there for our computer and the option for our CPU, as well as the configured IP, which is the address we have there. Then we'll be able to commission our CPU. As we're on a network, we can have up to 32 CPUs. We'll search for our CPU there by serial number and then OK it for commissioning. In the option here, we'll put yes to be able to reset the CPU settings and carry out our commissioning. This will give us our configuration name. You can also change the name of the CPU later on. In the download option, let's say no, we'll download it later. Note that the name of our CPU was changed during commissioning. Now, as an example, let's change the name of our controller. By entering the Attributes option, we can change the name of our controller. Type in a new name. OK. Then it will ask us if we want to make a new commissioning. Let's say yes. We'll choose our CPU and the option will be ready. We'll say OK. If there's more than one CPU, we'll choose it using our serial number. If you click OK, it will automatically change the name of our CPU. We'd already done the initial commissioning. Now we're changing the name to do it again. Commissioning. It asks if we want to download it. We'll say no and save our configuration. Next. Enter the new controller. And let's add a new controller as an example. Let's learn how to add a new CPU to our configuration just as an example. So let's add a new CPU, remembering that we can add up to 32 CPUs. Once our new configuration as an example, I'm going to delete this CPU. It's easy to delete. And we can have more than one CPU on our network in our configuration, each one with an IP, i.e., an internet address of our CPU. So, as an example, we will have these possibilities of having a system with CPUs. Once our configuration is complete, let's export the tags so that we can supervise and monitor our project. Next, we'll be able to download them. Right-click on Good Networks, Download.
Let's use Start.
And then it will download our initial configuration. Once downloaded, we'll have all the configuration inside our CPU, so we can start using this programming right away. Now let's go back to Logic View. In Logic View, before going online, we can also do a simulation in the communication menu. Click on the drawing of this computer. There are the possibilities to start simulating our store. Remember that we are offline.
By pressing the first button, we can see that the first output is switched on or off, depending on whether we are offline.
Or off, depending on our simulation. We can test the second line, the seal line. Notice that we pressed the first button. It turned the output on, even though the button was off, it sealed the input. And by pressing the off button, it will open our seal and turn off our pump. With that, we were able to simulate of our initial project. By pressing stop, we cancel the simulation and can close this simulation window. Let's now enter the online communication menu. Connect with our CPU. This will allow us to monitor our configuration. There is a menu where we can download, upload. We can check the parameters in the blocks. There is a menu with a few possibilities. We can only monitor the ladder by pressing this button. With this, online we can visualize our configuration. Using a didactic kit, we can also show the physical activation of our inputs and the actuation of our outputs, so that you can see how our system actually works. Take a look at the outputs by triggering the inputs using our kit. That done, we were able to check the operation, and in the event of maintenance, monitoring our sensors and our outputs. Let's now add a new line and see how easy it is to make a new download, a modification to the project. So we add an open contact. In blocks, we're going to insert a timer block, the TOM on timer. We take the timer, insert it into our store, and configure its inputs and its outputs so that we can modify our initial LED program. We put in an output. We'll place an input contact to trigger the timer, and an output contact. When the timer runs out, we'll trigger this output. Let's save the project. Then we'll add the tags. I'll put the first tag here, a virtual tag, on the input to trigger the block, enable the block. And then we'll add a real tag to trigger our timer input. As we've already used 1, 2, and 3, we're going to use input 4 here. We've placed the tag there. Let's trigger it. Connect the virtual to the output
of the block.
And on the output, on the other output, we're also going to put a real output to insert there and connect an output. Here we go. Output 3, we've used 1 and 2, and now in this timer block we use output 3. To insert the time, click on the block, and we have the possibility of inserting the time since our database is 0.01. So for us to be able to put that in, for example, 5 seconds, we put in 5,000. 10 seconds, 10,000, and so on. There's also the possibility of working with zoom. Zoom in, zoom out to make it easier to visualize our project. We're showing you there how to increase or decrease the visualization of our store to make it easier. In the communication menu, we're now going to download our change. Press yes. It will download our modified configuration since we already had an initial configuration.
Next, we'll monitor
the operation of our configuration. In order to monitor the block, we have a button for monitoring the block, and to bring up the parameters, we can click on the block there and press the parameter display button. To appear on the right-hand side, we click on it. It brings up the entire configuration of the block's parameters, and you can modify online the execution time of this timer. As with the other blocks, such as PID configuration, we can also tune the PID, we can modify a set point, we can modify the entire configuration by pressing this button, and in the menu on the right-hand side, you can make changes online. I am now going to make a new change to the project. Let's go to the Elements menu. And in the Elements menu, let's take the horizontal line and connect our timer block directly to our power line. With that, in communication, we can go into the monitoring option. It warns us that the program is different, and we can download it again, thus modifying the project. It's very simple, very quick. And it starts monitoring our ladder in sequence. Let's press the button for monitoring and the button for monitoring our block, as well as bringing up our settings and parameters of our block. So notice how easy it is. We can make a modification to our ladder programming, to our blocks, and start monitoring. Take a look. By turning on the input, we trigger the timer. And at the end of the time, it will turn on our output. Turning the input off, it automatically resets our timer, and we can turn this input back on to trigger our timer again. So that's how it's done. Next, we'll exit online monitoring. By pressing the monitoring button, we turn off monitoring, then close Logic View, close Syscom, return to Studio 302 in the logical setting. Then we can easily open our configuration again. We don't have to look for the file. We can easily open it to edit or monitor our system online. That concludes our video, and thank you for being here with us.